Is there something that makes it, something dangerous, that makes it, let's say, hard to partner with you?
Dangerous is a very loaded word.
Easy.
It's funny, I think we've spoken about power. I don't know if it is the other side of power is fear.
Because you're like so invested, you want to succeed, you're eager.
Am I really aware what my appetite for power is? What am I prepared to put up with in that regard?
It takes everything. You need to make a lot of compromises. In terms of risk taking, yes, we go to jail for each other, right? And you can put this on the back of a napkin, and I think it's honorable to do that.
I think if you're going to go down that road, then why not put a private detective? Why not actually put a forensic detective on that person you're going into business with?
I always do that. I do background checks when I hire key people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So we'll break the fast in, would you like still or sparkling?
Sparkling would be lovely.
Would you like to say a prayer before we start?
Yeah.
No, I haven't done the prayers yet.
Still or sparkling?
Next year.
Anything.
Okay, let's finish the
I'll
sparkling.
be on that.
Thank you.
Get that filled up.
Thank you so much for joining us. The big question we want to start with is, how do you see co-founding? Is it a lot like, or finding a partner? Is it like hiring or more like marriage? And who would like to start?
I mean, I'll kick off. For me, and just through my lived experiences, there are, and I think I mentioned this earlier, there were two channels. There was the accidental co-founding partnerships, which I fell into very much, and there was no judgment. Out of university, and I was looking for a job and wasn't sure what to do. I did business economics, and then just a friend said, "Oh, it was actually his brother. My brother's looking to set up a business. Do you fancy going in on it?" So I did absolutely no judgment. I did no reconnaissance. Thank you. It was,
Friendship.
let's give it. I didn't even know the guy.
Ah, you didn't know them.
He was a brother. He was a brother of a guy I knew, and I did nothing, and I fell into it, and that then evolved into a 18-year partnership.
Wow, so it's pure luck.
I don't know if it was luck, fate, whatever it may be. It actually ended negatively, and I think that drifted over many years through greed, through growth, through a number of different aspects. So for me, I probably stayed in a partnership longer than I should have, just potentially because I was in it for so long, and maybe a bit lazy to a degree as well, building good businesses, making good money. You brush things under the carpet to a degree. So I personally, I could have got out earlier and potentially should have got out earlier, but I didn't. So for me, that first instance was very much, just falling into it. But my second partnership was very much intentional. That was through judgment. That was through someone that I had been friends with for 13 odd years. He was 10 years younger than me, but I knew him inside out, and I would go as far to say that he was a brother. Like there was a deep trust. That for me was the biggest thing, trust. Above anything else.
As a person or professionally as well?
Professionally.
Both.
Professionally, because the biggest thing that I've seen through other businesses and through other partnerships, through other founders, is the lack of trust or someone running off financially. It's normally around finances. Greed creeps in, and I want to take as much as I can, and I'm out. And I've heard so many horror stories of other founders who have left the other founder partner with nothing. All of those years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years building a business, for someone just to disappear. So for me, that second intentional partnership was very much around a deep trust. I would have trusted him with my life. I would have trusted, and I did trust him. It was very much like that. And whether that was, I don't think that was luck. That was through 12 years of just, look, I was 10 years older than him. I brought him up, so to speak. He was 21 when we first met. So there was an element of me putting my arm around his shoulders and us going and growing him, but also the times when you're out, the times at weekends, the times during the day, the decisions, the coming to me and asking me for advice and guidance and direction, and me naturally building that trust with each other. So,
But you have been working with him
yeah,
before you. Is that,
12
I think that's an important thing, right?
I employed him in the previous business.
In the previous business, and then you spun out and
Exactly.
But there's a slightly different power dynamic, isn't there?
Yes.
With that age gap,
100%.
where he's looking up to you.
Correct. Very much so.
And you're probably in more control than
Correct.
you were the first time around.
Exactly that. But there's an interesting that because there was a respect from him to me and a respect from me to him. So there was a combination of a two-way respect. You know, he had, and we come back to building teams, I believe that there are generalists and there are specialists. And that he was very specialist in a specific area of business development and sales, and that's what he loved and thrived. I'm a bit more of an all-rounder. I can do that, but I'm also very detailed in delivery, and I dot the I's and cross the T's, so which he didn't. So for me, it was, there was an up trust and a down trust and respect.
Yeah.
and you complementing each other.
Complemented each other all the way through.
I think if you go back to the original question of like, is it like a business or is it like a marriage? You have to look at what your definition of both those things are in the beginning, right? Because a lot of people go into marriage like a business. If you look at the traditional format of marriage, take us back 40, 50 years ago, marriage was a business, be that for families, be that for women because they didn't have rights to the labor market, be that for men getting free domestic labor. Like in many ways, marriages are businesses. And I think in many ways, businesses are marriages because you spend more time with your business partner than you probably do with your romantic partner. But I think you have to look at like how the definition is evolving because like the idea that marriage is now romantic and the two things are divorced in kind of different directions, I think is a bit of a fallacy because the most successful marriages are in many ways like businesses. Agreed. And like the most successful businesses are in many ways like marriages, or successful marriages at least, right? Not the bad marriages. And I suppose it comes down to saying it's not necessarily a dichotomy, but it's about saying between those partnerships, so to speak, it's like, what is a successful partnership, whether that is in the home or as a founder or as a team or whatever it is. And it's, for me personally, I don't think it's one thing because it's a bit of a seesaw, right? It comes down to what is one person good at this end, and how is that either balanced or complemented by someone at the other end? Because if you're both the same, well, then you're out of balance and you don't have like the full spectrum of what you need. But equally, you've got to respect the other person for being different and adding something that you can't do.
Covering blind spots.
Exactly. Which may be your own and you don't want pointed out, right? So you can get pretty annoyed by it. But I think the idea that it's business or marriage is potentially a bit of a false dichotomy, and actually there's a bit of a bigger question about how do partners balance each other for success in any environment?
I 100% agree to that, and I think I've seen a bunch of breakups in founders, and it's I might disagree also that it's mostly for financial reasons. There's other reasons that can play a very good role. I've seen like friends. I also founded with friends, and we didn't agree on certain things, and so we had to split up. But it has changed also our friendship, and I think. In another case, I co-founded a business where I'm not the leader of the business, where I'm a co-founder and investor with a minority share, advising a little bit. And I firmly disagree with he's a very good friend of mine, and I firmly disagree with certain things, how he runs the business. But in that case, I decided for the friendship to not be extremely hard on him. Like I speak my mind. But if I don't see him tuning into that, I want him to run the business still. And therefore I decide on the friendship side.
But where do you call that line between, to say that this is going to be detrimental to my stake within the business?
If I'm not actively working the business, right? We're like having a call once a month. This is going on since several years. The business is growing. it could be, in my opinion, growing 20 times higher, right? So, and therefore, what's important, what you say, is that it's like in a marriage as well, there's contracts, right? Even the verbal contracts, written contracts. And I think this is where a lot of founders also don't go through this exercise. There's this rule that in the first week, you make sure rules are really clear. That's your responsibility. And then you can literally see on paper if there is like overlapping skills. You need to talk about overlapping skills because you might get into conflict with these. You also identify what are the skills that we don't have. Maybe you need a third co-founder.
Yeah.
On that. But then also set up tenets, guidelines that regard ownership. What if somebody wants to bail out, wants to move away after 2 years' time? You need to run through all these scenarios, which is a tough exercise on co-founders. But investors, they want to make sure that these scenarios have been played through because they're investing in this team to function and to work. So I have a big, when I hear, yeah, we're good friends, we know each other, there's a lot of trust, can be great. However, interests change. Right? So what you want to make sure that if it's friends, that they have a very professional and realistic relationship with each other to be actually taking the business to the next level.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about are quite functional guardrails of like, how long am I going to be in the business? What are your skills? Where I've seen it go really wrong is the more emotional stuff, like, am I really aware what my appetite for power is? Am I really aware of like to what extent I'm willing to be subjugated by someone else who thinks that they're smarter than me on some, on this? What am I prepared to put up with in that regard? And I think those things are not only not spoken about, but quite often founders go in not knowing themselves enough as to what a true motivation is. Like, are you doing it because you think you're right, which is probably never going to lead to being like a great business? Or are you doing it because you want to make money? Or is it about your ego? Or are you trying to be powerful? Or, I don't know, are you trying to prove something to your parents? Or whatever that real is. Yeah,
People change.
your motivation changes. But
Year on year.
you have to know what it is, I think. Otherwise, you can't work out what you need from another person or where your boundaries are.
I think it's different when you have investors. Sorry, I think it's different when you have investors. Because I think there is something, someone, guardrails, agreements, more vigorous agreements in place than if you're just hustling and building a business. Yes, there are agreements, and yes, there are, there are partnership agreements, shareholder agreements, what have you, but ultimately something can happen, and it can happen overnight. And the recourse on that can be minimal.
Look, regardless, investors or not, right? You're on the back of a napkin, you need to like agree on certain principles.
Yeah.
When you build a business together, right? Because I think it's going beyond. It's not a partnership, right? It's like trust is the number one thing. We can agree on. Yeah. But then you need to talk also about the goals. Where do we take the business in a year or 2 or 3? Yeah. Yes. The VCs and investors, they just like run this through, and you should have like a clear narrative there. But in that sense, I agree with the VCs that it's important that founders go through that story.
Shall we get Robin's opinion first, and then we can start dissecting?
You have an interesting co-founder, no?
Well, it's my view. Well, the view that I can only offer is it's almost entirely sort of theoretical, and I'm sitting here thinking, I've been with my wife since 1999, and I remember the day we met, and I keep hearing, VCs relationships with startups last longer than most marriages, so 8 years is, and it's like, okay, so this comparison is, it's all over the place because it's an easy short.
Only VCs talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't sort of interview my then girlfriend to become my wife. I said, do you meet these criteria?
As a co-founder.
As a co-founder. Here's a napkin. Can you just check off your areas of expertise and mine? Do they align? What happens if, you're good at something, but I want to do that? Obviously that doesn't happen. That said, we've been sitting at a table like this since September, where we've fallen into this, thank you very much, really productive rhythm. So she's doing all the coding, she's doing all the because she can sit and focus for hours, I mean, literally hours on end. I can't do that. And so her day will start at 10 a.m. and she will work on and off until about 3, 4 in the morning.
Wow.
I get up.
She is a coder.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she's phenomenal.
Is she like, does she put the headphones on and she's like
Doesn't need
deep focus?
Doesn't need to.
She doesn't even need white noise. Okay.
It's like, darling, you've got to eat. What? Okay. Anyway,
She's still coding while you're eating.
yeah. So I get up at 4 because that's when I've always got up. And so I sit there and really sort of do all the other stuff, which I love doing. And a lot of it's obviously rejection. So putting out applications, talking to people, answering calls like this. And this, for me, this is part of what it is to be growing this company. Going and meeting people,
Enjoy everyone, by the way.
doing that sort of cold calling. And that's not her thing at all. So the marriage bit has sort of bled into the work bit in a very constructive way. But then the question is, so ideally we don't need a co-founder, we just do it ourselves. But marriage and co-founder, I think that's probably not the best thing to do. So what is the next best thing? Someone who will bring all those skills at that level of trust where you can just sort of seamlessly move into a new relationship with someone you've never met before.
It's figuring out where the gap is. Is she happy to continue to code? Are you happy to continue to do what you do?
We don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. I mean, it's that we're completely making this up as we go along, which is amazing and incredibly exciting. But at some point,
There needs to be some structure. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, but again, I go back to the point about the dichotomy. You're assuming that because you're married, it won't work. That's also as much of there's sort of, it feels like sometimes there are really hard and fast rules on this stuff. It's like, oh, well, you shouldn't do business with your wife, or you shouldn't do, it's like, but not everyone's the same and every situation's totally different. So like, I wouldn't take the assumption that it's a bad idea if it is actually working.
Sure, but take this evening. I'm here. Lovely dinner, really stimulating conversation. She's at home, coding, looking after the kids, taking the dog for a walk again.
She can go out tomorrow night.
Sure, but you've got to bake that in, haven't you? You've got to be very conscious about it.
100%. Intention.
Otherwise, that kind of
Let's design it with intention.
yeah.
You'd have to do that with any founder or any wife. Actually, the challenge is you go off and get another co-founder and then you just never see your wife.
Yeah.
I think, like, for me, the principles are the same. It doesn't matter. I think trying to be more agnostic about predefined roles within a partnership, because I think founders, or certainly my founder experience going, is like, okay, well, he's good at numbers, he's good at technology, I'm good at strategy, and he's a subject matter expert. Dream team. Well, no, not if there's zero trust. You don't have the same ambition around working relationships, and everyone's power hungry apart from one person. Like, forget it. And I think that quite often you go and people can be very functional about it, but it's the softer stuff that matters sometimes way more than the functional stuff.
Have you ever felt jealous from any of your co-founders?
Not jealous, but resentful.
This
I would say resentful.
resentful?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm working harder than one of my co-founders.
Okay, so that's one of the
Yeah.
signals of resentment, when
100%.
one's putting in more.
Definitely. A lot more.
Or getting more credit.
Not getting, yeah. I mean, I wasn't getting any more credit, but I was definitely working a lot harder. And there is a bigger picture at play, but that can only go on for so long. Because then you're sitting there going, hold on, we're both reaping the same reward here.
Are they being smarter?
No, it's been
How they
lazy.
work- Okay, in your case, it was being lazy.
Yeah.
Because you can work less because you're working smarter.
No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
It was just laziness, life, slacking, and, and then.
But to go back to the example of your wife, supposedly, I mean, maybe she'll be jealous one day that I'm working all these hours, and
You said there were cracks starting to form.
yeah,
Is that because
hypothetically, right? But because
No,
I think this,
real.
this could happen.
It's Robin, you're the face of it. because I've got the running story, which is the origin story leads into what it is. It makes sense to sort of go to market with that.
Because it's you. It's your story. Yeah.
Except I know that she was the one who came up with the idea originally for solving this problem in this time last year, in a conversation over the phone. So I know that, she knows that. Do I say it often enough? Do I say it often enough to the people I meet? Probably not, because then it confuses the narrative. So I can see it bubbling. Is our marriage strong enough to ride that out? I sincerely hope so, but it needs to be acknowledged, as I guess it would be for any co-founder.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to sit down and go,
But can I ask you a bit of a question? Do you think do you know whether it's the right word? But I'll try it and see if it's the right word. Do you think you're a bit reticent to be like, oh, I've set up a business with my wife around the kitchen table? Because it's not the founder story that sounds like I've been intentional about meeting a tech wizard who's done whatever. Because I wonder if it actually in many ways strengthens the story, because we're going back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like the authenticity and the honesty is actually, and the emotional side of stuff is what truly motivates people around investment.
Great story.
And it's a great story. Whereas in some ways, I think because, again, the dichotomy of analysis of the co-founder of like, are you the perfect business partnership or are you the perfect marriage? Well, you could argue you're the perfect marriage if you can be married and have kids and do all of that stuff together. But and then it is quite sort of emotional with it. But then you also say, okay, well, what's the perfect co-founder? And people would not probably go pick your spouse, right? And I feel like these archetypes are quite unhelpful because I think they can probably help mean that we don't look at what's right in front of us and just say, I'm going to own it. This looks great.
I mean, you tell me, because I go and sit in these meetings and listen to my brother-in-law, who's an investor in Luxembourg. And investors hate couples who are co-founders.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Noted. We won't co-found this together. We'll need to find someone else. And that's...
Well, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, you tell me. I'm the
Investors
baby
also
around
hate
this room.
female founders, but that's another story for another day. But
Well, so that's a really interesting... Like, if she was the leader, suddenly all these... Adler, they got 10% of their cohort are women.
less than.
It's like, okay, you're through the door. Come on in. We'll give you all the money you want.
Really?
No, I exaggerate, but
Yeah.
but you tell me. I mean, if you guys say we should do this together, then
Oh, look, definitely.
Look,
I think one big challenge that, and this is what we see, is also look for, ideally, they invest in people that have done this before. Done this is like failure, fail to actually like find the right co-founders, maybe don't make the business big and fail and close the startup. But ideally, it's a story where the founder was successful and does it again, right? That's the perfect picture. But it's really about you. If it's not, you don't should use the hammer just because you started together. What I'm saying is, you need to think about what can the business be like in a year or 2 or 3 years that you have this conversation. That's always what I recommend, or even 5 years or 10 years. So also be open. Then one person can get in and get out, and we need to have another person. You need a CFO at some point. You need to like buy these and take these skills inside. What would this be like? So that you're staying agile in the scenarios that might happen. I think that is really healthy. And it helps you also like with a growth mindset about how can you take the business. Now you're complementing each other. That sounds perfect. But is this the right scenario for in 2 months' time or in 1 year time? And it's not, don't listen too much to the VC. They say, oh, we don't like this. This is not, it might lead to problems. Who are they to judge?
Yeah.
Like really, they're just pray and
Problems
pray.
will equally come up in two founders not knowing each other. And let's talk about the matchmaking part of...
Would you rather be in business with someone that you've known for 26 years and that you trust, or with someone completely new and different?
But there's an argument that someone new will actually challenge you more and will not tell you yes for everything. Right? I mean, on the marriage, I think there's a great example, Alex Hermosi. Right? His wife works with him, right?
Layla, yeah.
Layla, and they're a great couple, and they do great things together.
Drive each other,
They drive- yeah.
cohesive, same common goal,
But I,
complement each other.
but I think no two founders are the same, and no two marriages are the same. You have to pick your pathway. I think that's why there are so many different ways of living, and these hard and fast rules that VCs come in of like you can't be with your wife, or you've got to have a tech CTO, or you have to have, you know, a CFO by Series A or whatever. Of course, they're good things to kind of be mindful for. Have you got that functionality within your team? But sometimes these hard and fast rules, I think, are designed in order to help them. Okay, they're designed to help them filter, mostly because it's like GCSEs are designed to help people filter for A-levels, to filter for university, for filter to jobs. They're not actually that helpful. Like there's like a system that's
In place.
creating rules because it you know, out of the 1,000 pitches you get, it means, oh, right, fine, I've just done that. But it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to fail.
So it's what you just described is the linear approach to education, right? And the founder journey is very much linear as well, right? If we
I think it's assumed to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking about it the other day. I was studying it, and I was looking at all these incubators and these accelerators. How many do we have here? How many do we have here in Dubai?
30.
Tons of them. Pitch competitions and everything. I just looking at the cadence of every single one of them. I mean, I didn't look at every single one. I looked at, okay, I'm going to pick 10, and I'm going to go through, look through, because it's all very well documented on their website. I think it's exactly the same process. And I thought, hold on a minute. This has been going on for a number of years now, and obviously we have to look at maturity of the entrepreneurial ecosystem as well. And I was thinking, why has it not evolved according to the maturity of the ecosystem? Why is it still stuck in the same journey, the same cadence?
Why has it not produced 33 unicorns?
Yes. What do you think, Claudius?
I don't think this is a problem of the founders. Do you have enough co-founders together? Are these the right ones? I don't think that is the problem. I think the problem is more that you have a bunch of VCs that say you have to win MENA first. Right, so that's I speak from personal experience. There's a few who are very clear on that. And I understand also the reasons behind that, but you know, when you have the opportunity to build growth, I engage with startups that have global growth potential. That already disqualifies 80% of the startups here in the region, because they think just at MENA as the potential market. So I think that is like wrong at the core. I spoke at Binan in Saudi, 160,000 people over 1 week, right? You see like, I think there was like 10,000 startups there. And they want to ingrain this in the society to actually become entrepreneurs and start something. You're still in your full-time job, but you get the quick funding here, do something. There's tools, there's tons of venture studios popping up. I think this is awesome, but also at the same time, there's a lot of spray and pray because the failure, if we fail, we want to fail with very clear learnings. And today, in that ecosystem, a lot of startups do repeat the same issues. They repeat the same, like very, very basic things. Let's say you have a super dynamic team, super engineering, and a fantastic idea, and you see a path to execution. If you bundle this with a serial entrepreneur and founder that has had success, and that combination together, and I'm not talking about a Antler or like an incubator. Yeah, we give you some advisory. No, they're sitting on the wrong side of the table.
I think there's also a real question for me about, but what is the definition of success, right? Is because within all of those things, like through an accelerator, even if you don't get VC funding and you don't become a unicorn, you've still upskilled a lot of people in life experience, and you've given them, a new set of experiences outside of a corporate job. And I think it's interesting, having been involved in a couple of the incubator kind of programs. one of the ones I was in was very much, how do you make venture capital? How do you pitch for venture capital money? How do you grow at 10x? And how do you make venture capital rich and hopefully yourself along the way?
They ask for 10x.
Yeah.
Also ask for 100x.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Thank you.
whatever. It's all about the cash and it's all about the returns and it's all about the fast growth. Thank you. But then there are other scenarios that have been in like Cambridge University's incubator that was very much like, you've been picked because we believe you have a problem worth solving. We don't care how much money you make solving that problem. Of course, we want you to solve that problem. We want you to be effective solving that problem. But actually, there are so many different ways of solving that problem without necessarily having venture capital money. And many of these problems are quite hard to solve. And growing at 10x or 100x within a matter of years is probably not the best way to solve the problem, because we've all become so impatient on some of this stuff that, like, if you're going to solve some of the issues, these guys were doing AI for nuclear fusion. Don't lovable code that, right?
No.
Like, just like, like, do it properly, do your research, right? And instead of just being like, bish, bash, bong, get it out, scale it, go to market, triple growth. Some of these questions were really big around ethics, around regulation, around some of these things. And it was like, it's a problem worth solving, and take your time solving it and do it in a way that solves the problem, not necessarily just delivering returns to the market. And again, I see that being quite an interesting thing, because you have to, as founders, I think, define what your definition of success is. Like, are you interested in the problem or are you interested in the financial outcome? Obviously, you want to have both. But I think sometimes, and you can't have just one or the other.
Because your investor is looking at you in a very different way than you're looking at yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because they're looking around a table like this going, well, look, we'll bet on all of you and hopefully one of you will work. Whereas you're thinking, this is the only thing I care about. Is that correct?
Yeah, is a lot of spray and pray. But I think the reason is not clear why only 1 out of 10 or out of 50 or out of 100 or in the Middle East, not at all, that ratio is actually becoming a huge, large success, potentially a unicorn.
Scaling is a big problem.
Yeah, scaling is a big problem. And this is why in some incubators say, okay, you cannot be in a job. You need to have leaving your job to go all in. So this is like a very simple method of validating that they are committed.
Is that a good method for validation?
So depends what the objective is. If the objective is to create unicorns, then 100%, okay? But a big fear of investors is that the vast majority of businesses becomes a lifestyle business. It pays some good returns, we pay ourselves some nice salaries, and that's the story. It's just another SME. It can be a beautiful story, create jobs, right? It's like it feeds into the ecosystem. It is not a unicorn, can be far away from that. So that is a big fear in VCs, that it creates lifestyle businesses, because let's say you have some growth and then you just like after 2-3 years, the young kids are happy with that. And
I've seen a lot of founders raise money with that being the thing of being like, oh, well, we'll just build a house of cards and raise enough money to keep us going for a while, and it's fine. 9 out of 10, 10 can fail.
That's a problem as well, right? So there's some networks here that kind of like foster that atmosphere.
I personally can't work in an environment where those things are not aligned to me, because for me, doing business is as much about doing something that is aligned to me as a person and a purpose. Don't want to call it a lifestyle business, but it's more around that sort of, actualization of bringing something to life than it is about nudging the envelope for the sake of turning a profit.
So we have some kind of a tension here. So you're saying what you look for, especially when it comes to moral values, is some kind of an alignment between the work and the personal, right? The professional and the personal. What you're saying is more, who am I to judge, right? Because I also have flaws, they might have flaws, so.
I think the risk thing I take very seriously, because so my wife Lawrence is, it has to be perfect before it leaves the kitchen table. I'm like, it doesn't. It's just get on with it. doesn't matter if it doesn't work. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. I'll bleep it out.
We just need to, we can not fake it, but we can go, look, it's scrappy and it's all the rest of it.
Done is better than perfect.
Exactly. Now,
So you agree with him?
I see both. I think the deciding.
You have to agree, Wesley.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I think for me, it's you got to get it. You got to get it out. You got to get it done. You know, there are ethics associated that you need to abide by. But the thing is, for me, is that you don't know those ethics of someone. That takes years and years to really truly see someone's true colours. In my opinion, in your case, 26 years.
So see it as a hiring process. You said, like, is it like hiring someone? Yeah, but it's a very thorough hiring process. And I think trust and respect are outmost. You don't have to be able to become friends with that co-founder. I think that is like a wrong belief.
Yeah.
It's great if you can be. It's fantastic, right? But it's also very rare. We got to be very honest with that. So, in terms of trust, it is mega important, and you need to be on the same level of risk awareness, because if you decide to build a lifestyle business, then it's also you need to have alignment on that. If you want to build a unicorn, you need to have alignment on that. It literally takes everything. You need to make a lot of compromises in terms of risk taking. Yes, we go to jail for each other.
Yeah.
Right, and you can put this on the back of a napkin, and I think it's honorable to do that. Right? You can always frame this and put it at the wall. So, and again, like running through these scenarios, how does our life look like in the next 5 years potentially? Is this what we want? I mean, this is a big like failure for some VCs, that they don't like go through this potential journey enough. It doesn't take much. It's like 1 or 2 workshops, like really short, couple of hours, just to like brainstorm this out.
But let me hammer this. When you say trust, is it that you want to trust the person in the business person you're dealing with, or also the personal, it's a personal aspect?
It is always personal.
So it's always
You
personal.
don't have to be friends.
So you are in Ali's camp.
Absolutely. And towards, sorry, please.
I think if you're going to go down that road, then why not put a private detective? Why not actually put a forensic detective on that person you're going into business with?
I actually really wish I had.
Yeah.
I always do that.
Yeah.
I do background checks when I hire key people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
You always background checks. I always do that.
And do they know that you're doing that?
Yes and no. Oh. No, it's like, Lassie, give me your references, because you need to cross-check. And it's not that I don't trust. It's like business always comes first.
And do it on me.
So
Be
but
open with it. Do it on each other.
But we don't have to do it this way. I mean, you can sometimes evaluate a person's character and behavior by looking how they treat the waiter, let's say, right, in a restaurant. Now, it's not very significant, probably. They're faking it, right? But I like the idea of putting it seriously, like trying to investigate what are these people made of, right? It doesn't have to. We don't have to be perfect.
No, but if you're doing that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, you're taking the co-bit out of the founder, aren't you? You're saying you're taking the power structure. Is saying I'm the one investigating your background,
Both ways.
but it's on you to do it.
I'll be open with you. Do it with me. There you go. Everything on the table. And if someone runs away after that, then
you know.
But I also think, like, what is it that you're looking for, right? Like, because in the whole question around trust, like, and asking the questions of, are you willing to go to jail for, are we going to jail for each other? Like, so some of the stories that I've heard from people who have gone, are running multi-billion-dollar businesses, they were in the black $50 million at some point, and it's like they're like, they had discussions with their co-founders that they would be comfortable with that. Now, if someone said that to me, that wouldn't build trust, right? So it's like, what is your definition of it? And then you look at some of the things that go on in the world of business where trust is actually built by all doing something bad together. Like, trust is built in different ways. And so I don't think it's just about like...
Yeah, a mob can create trust, right?
Yeah, who's got a clean slate and who doesn't. You have to look really carefully about what are your values and what are you trying to achieve, and then work out what you're comfortable within those. Because again, trust is different for everyone, and how it's built, I think, is different.
Can there ever be a synergy, a one-for-one synergy on that? Because every human is totally different.
I think it's everyone's totally different.
So there has to be an element of compromise on either side, and whether they're trade-offs essentially. And I think one has to decide whether that trade-off here is worthwhile.
I think there's also a part of us as humans that we haven't really talked about that much, which is gut instinct. And I think there is quite a bit of that I think as a founder or as a co-founder or as a business owner, you have to go with, because otherwise you have to trust your gut, because you can be rational about a lot of stuff, but 9 times out of 10, if you're really trying to do something important, you're doing something totally new for which there is no real evidence or something around.
And at some point, you've got to get on with it, right?
Yeah.
The gut comes from, in my experience, from experience. If you're a 21-year-old founder, you haven't got that gut instinct that a 40-year-old founder would have.
Isn't that wisdom? Isn't that different?
I think some people do. I mean, I don't mean to sound woo-woo about it, but sometimes it is a bit more of like an energy about someone. I think as humans, we can read a lot more than we're conscious of being able to read, or can go into a Founder's 50 Questions or a Myers-Briggs or whatever. You get a sense for someone, and quite often in the excitement of building a business, I think you can run past red flags as you can in the excitement of dating or getting married or whatever the hell else is going on.
So
Being good at seeing red flags and trusting yourself to say, actually, in my world, that is a red flag, whatever your definition is, and not running past it, I think is critical.
Okay, I want to take that. Have we ever, anyone here, seen a red flag in a business partner, and looked the other way?
After a period of time, yes. Yeah. Not like it builds up because you're in it, and it's a decision that
Thank you.
things are good and rocking the boat, and you're kind of in a position that you know something's not right, but you still stay in it. And I think that decision is not just business, that can come from personal aspects as well. If there's a lot going on in your life, do you need and do you want to rock the boat? And then it gets to a stage where enough is enough, the breaking point. And I know I had that.
And is it too late sometimes? I mean, how many red flags do you need to say that's enough, or there's something here that is a pattern? And I'm asking because I've been there, so I'm interested in your
I don't know how many red flags.
no, to me, a red flag is a red flag. I think that it needs to, things need to change dramatically. So just there was a deficient, quickly.
I'm quite a trusting person, and I've learned that through my life. And I love to be able to trust, and I believe that trust is lost, not earned. And I would say that.
What do you mean by that? I'm confused.
That I would always try and go into a relationship with the basis of trust there.
Assuming the best.
So innocence until
Assuming
proven
the
guilty.
better version.
Correct, exactly. And that has worked against me in the past. Because there are a lot of people out there that are not trustworthy, and they have ulterior motives. And I suppose from me now, and we go back to core values, that is one of my core values, and I want that. I see the good in life, and I see the good in people. And I truly still believe that should be the case, but I am more cautious now. And I try and use data initially, then backed up by my experience of people, situations, and I've been through many. So I'm able to now, and I suppose that comes back to my point of, and maybe it is wisdom, maybe it's the wrong word, but wisdom is the word, that I now integrate that into my decision making.
I still strongly believe trust takes time.
I do think in the whole founder, I mean, it's interesting, I'm thinking about it now, but I do think in the whole founder story, particularly in a world where people are trying to grow fast and grow quickly, there are shortcuts that are built for building trust. Oh, I got investment from this investor. Okay, well, how much did you actually get? Right? And are they your uncle? There's this thing, right? Or I went to this university. Okay, for 5 minutes or for your PhD? And I think what's interesting is that in the it's quite easy to get carried away, a bit like it is in the world of dating. Oh, I've got a job and, you know, like I work at JP.Morgan and, you know, I've got a car. Okay, my car's on lease and I'm the janitor at JP.Morgan. Like they're two very different realities.
If you have that case,
Not yet. But, you know, they're two very different realities on a story, right? And in the world of founders, I've heard multiple people tell the
It's so
story
true.
yeah.
So
of
true.
I'm at JP.Morgan and the Porsche's mine. Whereas in fact, they are the janitor at JP.Morgan and the Porsche's not theirs. And I think that's where, as a founder or a co-founder, you do have to go in and be really careful, because entrepreneurship, I think, has been glamorized to a certain extent, and people...
And even more so now, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's become really permissible with the whole tech bro thing and whatever else to say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not a lie if you believe it yourself. And I do work at JP.Morgan.
Yeah.
I just didn't tell you where.
that's an issue, and especially more important for startups, because a corporate, if there's one wrong hire,
And also social
but
media.
if you can hire 5 people, and 2 are not the high performers that you need, you're in trouble.
But there's also the broader context of the hiring or so I, from a corporate point of view, the red flag that has turned out fine and the red flag that has not turned out fine. I've got lots of experience of that. So where in the UK, interviewed a guy, it was a very specific job and there were probably about 4 people in London who could do it. I wanted this guy because his track record as a creative was superlative, but he was a drinker and he didn't turn up to his first interview because he was hungover, said he was at the doctor's, and I was like, I sort of knew that this was going to happen, but I hired him anyway because the trade-off was worth it.
It's tough.
Scenario.
I just want to refer, and I hate to be corporate in this sense, because I really hate the corporate structures. They make us just work in treadmills, and it just feeds into the system. Everybody gets going, and you have meaningless meetings for hours and hours. But here it's like guiding principles are needed for startups also in the beginning. What are we building for? What's the pathway? What's our North Star? Are we all into this? Are we disagreeing on the direction and journey? Then now is the time to speak up on it. And such a scenario, you learn from it now. If you would have had a conversation also like, hey, if somebody is not performing, we're supporting that person. Of course, yes, we agree, because it's really important. You do the right thing. You support that person 100%. But there's also limits to it, because business first.
I can be, yeah.
And then that person will understand.
Yeah.
In most cases.
You inspired me with the conversation of the red flags. So from one perspective, I'm like, you know what? I want to color code these flags, right? Like I want to have seriously, I want to have like a orange flag for mistakes that we all do, which is fine, right? As long as whatever. But there's 2 things. The first one is, what really constitutes a red flag? Because I liked what you said, a red flag is a red flag, right? I like that moral angle. But what constitutes a moral flag in that respect? Another point, what you said, and I had the similar experience, and I can give you example from the world of advertising, which I've been into. You find sometimes characters who are weird and maybe alcoholic or whatever, right? But they're highly creative, and you see their value. You see, like if I hire that person, if I partner with that person, I'm gonna have a completely disruptive business, and it's true. So from one angle, I'm torn. So from one angle, I can see what you're saying, that sometimes you need exotic people, even if they are, touching the border of our moral code or or the way we think about a good character. But from another perspective, I need to have a clear-cut red flag.
It's very hard to say what exactly is a red flag. You have to take into context the environment and the personality of the people.
Yeah.
And also how deep you go in, because if you're 5 years deep, 10 years deep in a business, that would be very different to 6 months deep in a relationship with a co-founder that you've just met. You'd be, in my opinion, you'd be able to cut. what I call it. I'm cutting, I'm out.
I once heard something that said we shouldn't get married, we should treat our relationships like apartments. Like you wouldn't live in the same apartment your entire life. Right? You wouldn't, when you're 16, 17, 18, be like, okay, this is good for now, I'm going to stick with it forever. You're going to evolve, you know, your needs are going to change, you might want to move countries, you know, you wouldn't live in the same place. And I do think that there is also a bit around co-founders and teams being the right things for the right stages of business. Because the person who's excellent at getting something off the ground and getting it to a certain stage isn't necessarily the person who's going to get excited about an IPO.
The beginnings are always very romantic, and maybe even more in your case, is great. But like playlist scenarios too. And I think anything is valid also. You can say, okay, if this grows, we can sell it after 2 years or after 1 year. Or I'm happy with shutting it down after 2 years if it is not paying our previous salaries. Yeah. Or I'm also happy for you to just like take the lead and I step back. I just do HR, or you know, like
or this is my baby and I never want to let it go.
No, I would the plan if
it's ingrained in you by the sounds of it.
You're talking of yourself?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. You know, probably to a degree. There is definitely an element of that. You've cut your teeth, right?
It's so hard to let go.
Yeah.
But there's a landscape
once you build something.
Factor. So our view is build something, scale it, sell in 5 years. That's a sort of the grand narrative. Because someone like Equinox, who are building in the US, they've got a waiting list on their place in New York. It costs $40,000 a year to be in their gym. They will come to the GCC at some point, and we want to set everything up, and they go, right, there you go, we've done all that for you. That's the plan that we're working to.
How do you say delicious in Italian?
Delizioso.
You come to a conversation.
Delizioso.
I did a lot of M&A talks where we look, mille grazie.
Wow, thank you.
Wow.
This is homemade by the grand Alessandro.
I just want to go back to simplistic things like when we go through meeting a partner, right? There's no rule book for it. You kind of go into it and you can have a bad experience. You end up having a good experience. It's a bit of trial and error. Finally, you find someone and maybe after 2-3 years, you eventually marry, if that's the case. But you don't go to school to learn that. You can hear words of wisdom from your parents or from friends or things like that, and you kind of build up. You know, you take the advice from them. But with our future where our whole education system is being built to put you into a paid job, and where the trend is now saying that, you know, entrepreneurship is the way to go. But we're not being taught not only how to be entrepreneurs, but how to work with other entrepreneurs, to work with other founders. There's no school for it.
Yeah.
I think I'm making an assumption, and I'd love to.
I think there's a lot of universities that would say that they teach entrepreneurship now. I think there's an increasing drive within. I mean, it's interesting. I've been reading.
Thank you so much.
I've been reading the like personal statements of people applying to university. These children have like taught dolphins new languages, and God knows what else they've learned how to do. But like they're doing they've done humanitarian work, they've done a TEDx talk, they've done like the amount of extracurricular stuff that is happening that is increasingly, I think, entrepreneurial in terms of like even like building your own Roblox, or it seems like having a side hustle on Instagram or drop shipping is not that unusual amongst like a lot of younger people. So I think it's much better than it was certainly when I was a kid 20 years ago. Is that teaching someone entrepreneurship? But also I think quite a lot of people have like traded crypto and now think it's super easy to like make money. But I think it is better than it was. But fundamentally, I don't know if you really can teach entrepreneurship, because I think it's in theory, you know, the theory is one thing, but the execution is the other.
I think to me, it's a mindset, right? And you can like, when I was 13, I took my first job, and it's not because I had to take a job. It's like I wanted to buy. I don't know what I wanted to buy, but like I decided I need to work, and so I was like taking newspapers out to the bike. So
that's an an extinct job now, isn't it? The newspaper boy.
The newspaper boy, right? And it's like, it made me feel like I'm earning my own money. It was super important for me. It changed like my mindset, like I can really make my own money. For me, a pivotal moment, one of the most simple things. And then I set up my first company just a week after I turned 18. And it did cost me 50 Deutschmarks, I think, still back in Germany. And that was it. Like, it's a mindset, right? So,
It is. And a lot of people want that. And I would say on the flip side, there's a lot of, I was going to call them kids, but 20, 21-year-old that I'm in a number of groups with. And I spoke to one like 20-year-old and he's like, my vision is 5 years, grow, explode, sell, and then go and give back to the world. You know, from a 20-year-old, I was like, cool, let's talk.
Yeah, that's the mindset.
it's a big issue.
Okay, I have a question for all of you. Comes with the dessert.
Okay.
Is there something that makes it something dangerous or difficult about you that makes it, let's say, hard to partner with you?
As an individual,
Yeah, as you.
as us,
Yeah.
us as people.
Yeah. As Ali.
I bet you every one of us will say something, should say something different,
Yeah.
because we're all individual.
Something that is.
Dangerous is a very loaded word.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to load things. Dangerous, difficult, not easy.
It's funny, I think we've spoken about power and like the other, I don't know if it is the other side of power is fear, but I think that I think fear is another very unconscious emotion that that we don't often take into account. And I think I can often find myself unconsciously scared of things that I then sort of become more consciously scared of, that I think would hold me back in terms of my progress, because I can quite rationally talk about, say, you know, I can imagine something, I can vision something, but then when it comes down to the reality of like doing it and going again and doing it every day, I mean, there is some days I'm just like, oh, this makes me feel sick. You know, it really does. And you're just like, I don't actually particularly want to do this, and therefore I don't. And it's not I know I should do it. And weirdly, if I was doing it for someone else, I'd find it easier.
It's easier to do it to some.
I mean, like I can do BD like this, you know, like the houses come home. But like, for example, my startup's a very personal story about egg freezing, and it's based on my own experience of egg freezing, which happened when I got divorced. And so there's like quite an emotional element around it, and it's still a taboo subject for some people, and it's complex ethically, as well as kind of the vision for the business. And some days you just think, oh, I can't, I don't actually have the emotional, what's the word? It's really actually the emotional capacity. Just the capacity, like the kind of like, do you have a big enough kind of cotton wool thing wrapped around you to be able to fight once again with another clinic around trying to overcome a regulation, which I know is legal, to try and move a biological material to another country, because I believe it is the right thing to do, and it is the highest value problem that we need to go after right now.
It's intrinsically linked in you, isn't it?
But it's intrinsically linked so much to trying to move my own eggs. Instead, I actually just want to cry. And actually, that is the thing where you're like, weirdly, if I was moving someone else's eggs or moving it for someone else's business, I wouldn't care so much. And it's that, I don't know what it is. It's almost the other side of, is it you care too much, or is it a fear of failure? I don't know what it is, but I think, and I don't think it is exclusive to being female. I think it gets wrapped up in men and business in different ways. But I think sometimes when you're attached to the problem and you're attached to the solution, and potentially your heart and your ego is attached to the outcome, that can make being a founder quite difficult, because you can also be your own worst enemy in that.
What a fascinating
sharing.
point. Yeah, fascinating point.
Thank you for sharing. I think this is incredible difficult as a founder, because you have a lot of pressure points there. You create your own expectations today with your co-founder as well. You have expectations with the co-founder. You're emotionally attached to it. You very much, but every founder is emotionally attached to their baby and how they raise it and bring it up, and it change, and the outcome sometimes is very different. But also then there's investors, right? So the pressure is real. It is a daily roller coaster. To your question, I don't think I'm dangerous. However, like I live through this daily, especially right now, and what I'm doing now is like a daily roller coaster, a hint of anxiety as well, because you're like so invested, you want to succeed, you're eager. You take a few wins in the day, you take a few like pushbacks and barriers in the day, and I think if I play, I'm always like doing well and everything is always great, I'm not real, I'm not authentic. But I want also, like, I have a lot of understanding for the people that are in with me in that journey, that we're going through this together and we're supporting each other, right? So I will help people get up again, but I also need to help me, no matter if these are co-founders or just like anybody else that I have in my team. So I don't think it's dangerous, but like it's intense. If it wouldn't be a struggle, I would be bored.
Yeah.
So, but also I look for like-minded people that go with me through the journey. I'm okay to go a bit more in the extra mile, but they need to like be with me in that journey, right? And understand that and lean into it.
Vested.
So then how would people perceive you see that as a dangerous characteristic?
Well,
You see that as a positive.
Yeah, I can be. I would love, and I'm 100% sure my teams, they don't see that always as positive. But I can be very pushy, demanding, get things done. I need to see immediate turnaround. I need to, like, I don't know, if there's no response on an email thread for like 2 days, I'm like, what the hell, what's going on, right? So this is how me I operate. I need to see this progress continuously.
You need to see the train moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
There is no, like, I have a 15-minute rule and I have a one-day rule. 15 minutes after we meet with the client, because now this is an enterprise sales business. After 15 minutes, after we left the building or like hung up, there is the summary there. That is the ideal rule, and there's exception to it, right? But ideally, you sit down in the lobby and do your summary, the next steps, and there's movement every day, right? And it also creates
You keep
other
the
questions.
momentum as well.
Yeah, you keep the momentum.
Important.
And
Guardrails,
this is-
expectations.
Exactly. So this is the guidance that I have on how we conduct business, and it works. I have to say, it really, really works. Yeah.
What's the dangerous attribute?
I like to scale. Which has probably put me in some precarious positions in the past. I just feel that in life you need to be pushing the boundaries, you need to be edging forward, you need to be building, and that takes hustle and grind. You know, that does take the long days, the long weeks, the long years. And it's just like an inner want to do it, to grow. And you know, there is an element of, I wouldn't say careless decisions, because they're always been calculated, but when you're wanting to scale and push, then other things can get blinkered out the way. And I suppose probably for me, that was an element of me, is blinkering other aspects out the way just to focus on the scale.
Is there anything in particular that you blinkered out that you regret?
No, I don't regret anything, because it's led me here. So no, not regret, but hindsight's a beautiful thing. And yes, if I could go back, I would change decisions on investments, decisions on scaling the business, decisions on hires, decisions on opportunities that came and maybe didn't invest the money made from those opportunities in the right way. So yeah, but not regret, definitely not. But I would say that's probably an element looking back, that was my danger.
Robin.
I'm not sure. I think my wife would say I'm incredibly stubborn. And I think that is born or is reflected in all the stuff I've done outside my corporate life, which is basically to run and to write books. And those are two very lonely experiences. And I lean into that and I love it.
You don't have to run alone.
You do. the kind of stuff
The
kind of stuff I do.
one is always faster than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine.
And I run at night, and I run in strange places. It's sort of
Oh yeah.
it helps to run on your own.
All right.
So to take that sort of very solitary mindset and to be sort of protect yourself from the world, doing that, and then come up with an idea, admittedly with a co-partner in crime who can validate between the two of you that it's a good idea, and then take that to the world where you haven't got a clue whether it's what people want. You've got an instinct, you've got, you know the process that you need to go through in order to validate it, but you're also mindful, okay, I'm 49, I know myself well enough, I need to listen to people. And you ask enough opinions and you'll get so many different views on what you should and shouldn't do.
Like that.
What's signal, what's noise, and where does my instinct that comes from that solitary belief that what I've done in the past works, therefore I should carry on doing that. What is the right way forward? And I find that incredibly difficult, particularly in a place like Dubai, where we turn up here, didn't know anyone. And so it's not like you can go next door and go, oh, can we sit down and have a beer, and am I going mad, or is this a good idea? So it's all, I think that's the dangerous bit of, it's not a dangerous personality, it's a vulnerability that could be dangerous. So I think that's the only reasonable answer I can give you, I think.
That's very interesting, because also running and writing makes you very calm, and you start observing things from a completely different perspective than people who are, more fiery and engaged in conversation every day. So also back to mindset, it changes the way you look at things. And so in your case, probably your wife has a different character than yours, right? So it's like you complement each other.
I hope so. I mean, she's a complete...
Still going.
Say
so-
yes.
Yeah.
Say yes. She's going to listen to this. Say yes.
So, I mean, the 100-mile race I did in 2019, I failed 6 times. Got to 50 miles, got to 70 miles, got to 80 miles, didn't get to the start line. And my wife's like, just stop it, give it up.
Enough's
Come
enough.
on. And I'm hoping that kind of
Good for you.
resilience,
tenacity.
it's at least it's a story to be able to go, look, I haven't
it's a bit
built
like
anything,
the story.
and I've got nothing to show you that I've built and failed, and this will succeed. But I know how to pick myself off the ground.
Yeah.
Says a lot.
Says a huge amount.
Says a huge amount.
So
That story.
That's mindset.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
the proof will be on the pudding. But whether we can get this off the ground or not, with or without investing.
I love it. A great analogy, because as I said before, right, it is a long run, and there's a much larger picture that usually founders in the beginning cannot envision and see and make it more tangible.
But I think if you try and sit, it's just so overwhelming.
It is.
My God,
That's why you've got to chunk the problem down.
exactly.
You've got to do 20 miles and then 40 and then...
Yeah,
And also surround yourself with people that have done it, which is what you said earlier.
yeah,
Because then that gives you the ability to see that it can be done.
yeah.
And also where it can go and where it can end up. It's like start with the end in mind and reverse engineer.
Like the North Star in the beginning.
Yeah.
I definitely learned a lot today, so thank you for all.
Likewise.
Yeah.
No, it's enlightening.